Hello all, welcome to another one. You may be seeing that this is being posted from not my usual place. If you're in the know, you're in the know. Before we get into things, I need to give as many disclosures as I can so YouTube doesn't get on me about this one again. They have a real tendency of trying to take down content that does not violate terms and conditions because their AI bot insists you are without any way of countering it. So for the disclosures, this video is about education, discussion, research on topics that involve, in this situation, not controlled substances. These are not controlled substances. YouTube, you need to stop trying to flag people for discussing it because you are violating your own policies. So let's stop do that. Let's just not do that anymore. Come on, can we please? So in addition to that statement that this is about education on not controlled substances, this is also going to involve probably topics that require some sort of content warning. So content warning about mental health. Outside of that, again, if you've seen my content, you'll know that these substances, while they are not controlled substances, are not regulated. They're not FDA approved. You really can't say with any degree of confidence what is exactly in them. So if you make the decision to buy and consume any of these products while they are legal to do so and are not a controlled substance, you are making a decision with your own body as an adult, and that decision can only be made by you. You can take my advice on things, you can listen to what I say. However, it is still your decision to make with your own body. Just know that this is not a regulated industry in the slightest, and that's part of why this video is being made. So this is a response to the YouTuber Goblin's most recent video on Treehouse Mushroom Vapes. I've been watching Goblin's content for a pretty decent amount of time now, since I would say late August. I've not really talked about it much on my own pages and on my own content, but Goblin is actually one of the main inspirations why I'm even in this space. I would say probably about a year ago, but I only discovered it in September. He released a video on the THCA loophole and the 2018 Farm Bill. And so upon seeing this, yeah, I came to the awareness that no, you can purchase legal hemp-based products pretty much all throughout the United States, unless there is uniquely specific laws set to regulate those in said state. So it was because of that video that he made and his different videos talking about different subjects, different substances, that inspired me to even get into this. So my story begins quite simple. I go into a local dispensary near where I live, no idea it existed there, and purchased legal 2018 Farm Bill compliant hemp-based products. And that's kind of how it began. From that point onward, I explored a couple different other places, and that's when I first discovered these weird mushroom products. The first one I found was by a brand called Exodus, and they are quote-unquote Amanita vapes. Very little had been known about this product. It basically did not exist online as far as like a presence. There are like no reviews. There's maybe 3 people at the time who had done a very brief review and knew literally nothing about the product. And so at this point in my life, I was at a very, very, very low point to where I was willing at that stage to put literally anything in my body to feel literally anything again. If you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to go into too many details because, again, YouTube might hound me for this. But so I try the product and I found that, wow, this is interesting. It is doing something for me. But what is this? What exactly is this product? And so I spent the course of the next few days going very deep into researching what this could be. The product is claiming it's an Amanita-based thing, but a lot of evidence was suggesting that you just cannot smoke Amanita. It just doesn't work that way. So I was looking into its byproducts, the ibotenic acid, the mucimol, and I discovered that while Amanita itself cannot be smoked, there are versions of mucimol extract that can be, and that may be what is in these vapes. But what I then also stumbled upon is this product by Exodus, these mushy vapes, are incredibly deceptive. It does not say in the package of the version I had anywhere on it that it contained the alt cannabinoid HHC. It says it nowhere on the package. You have to go through their QR code link and dig deep through their website to try to find that that is the case. And since then, they've removed the lab test that even says this. And so that idea inspired me to continue to look more into this. How many of these brands exist like this? How many are super weird and shady? I'd obviously heard of a lot of these kind of things having happened in the past. So I'm assuming a lot of you are familiar, especially if you're familiar with Goblin's content. But there was like a big phase, like a decade ago with like K2 or Spice or these other weird synthetic cannabis-like products that turned out to be very dangerous. And they operated in basically the exact same way most of this stuff does today as well. So from that research brought me into learning about Amanita. And from Amanita brought me into learning more about other kinds of legal psychoactive or psychedelic substances, specifically for the purpose of trying to assist with my insomnia and crippling lifelong existential depression. And so that brought me to the Treehouse brand. They were one of the probably more prominent brands that you will find in my area. And according to most people, it's one of the more prominent brands you'll find pretty much anywhere in the United States. They're far bigger of a company than you would anticipate. And so I go into this dispensary, chat up the people there. We had a nice long conversation. They spoke about how they knew the people who work at Treehouse. It's not just like a simple business arrangement. And keep in mind, these people are not like your classic shady smoke shop, willing to sell you literal poison if it makes them a nickel. These are people who have worked in the hemp industry for years. They work at a dispensary. Some of them even have actual degrees in this stuff, and they are partnering with Treehouse. So they tell me about the gummies, and the guy kind of gives a vague description at first. And it was one of those to where I wasn't sure at the time if he did not know as much about it as he was letting on, or if he was intentionally not sharing enough because he knew that if he gave too much information, it could get them in trouble. And we'll get to how that ends up happening. So I come home, I try these gummies. At first, I thought these might have been Amanita, but then from doing some comparisons and some research, I discovered that no, they're very, very obviously some sort of, it feels exactly like standard shrooms. At this point, I have had shrooms maybe 3 small times prior, over a couple more months prior due to some foraging and shit. And this just feels like that. They taste like ass, mind you. They are very, very not pleasant to taste. They taste horrible, but it brings about that sensation. And so then as I continue to do research, I figured out that what is likely in this product is a synthetic, again, YouTube, legal, non-controlled substance referred to as psilocybin or 4-ACO-DMT. This is one of many research chemicals that operate as what's called a prodrug. What it does is it in the body basically breaks down the same way that psilocybin does. What a lot of people don't know is psilocybin on its own does not do shit for you. It is just a early on prodrug substance of the actual active psychoactive substance psilocin. So psilocybin on its own does not do anything for you. It has to decarb and digest in your body in a very similar way that THC edibles do into psilocin, and psilocin is what actually gives you the effect of tripping. That's how it works. Again, there's a lot more complicated science to it. I'm not a pharmacologist. I started doing this as a hobby a few months ago. But the fact that I'm able to know this now shows that you can learn these things. They are readily available. You have to do a little bit of digging, but it doesn't require too much effort. This was a hobby for me. So I learned that these gummies almost certainly contained either 4-ACO-DMT or another one of the many substances that are quite similar. And so as I continue to look into it, I was able to find access to actual third-party lab testing that gave down to a milligram specific amount of many different of these smoke shop products for their active ingredient contents. And almost all of them are using 4-ACO-DMT. Since then, some have stopped using it in favor of other substances, but at the time that this was published, and likely at the time of the product I was using, it was almost certainly 4-ACO-DMT. So from that point onward, I started to continue finding more of these products, trying to find ones that are better, because keep in mind, the Treehouse gummies taste terrible. They're really not good. I found that swallowing them is basically the only way you can make it work. And a full bag of Treehouse gummies feels approximately on par with around a 3-gram standard psilocybe cubensis trip. That's about what it's going to feel like to you. There seems to be some degree of deviation in the product. As to why that is, could be as complex as they don't know what they're doing, to literally they just have like a scooper and they dump it in, and it's a little bit different every time. You would literally not know unless you saw the production line. So from there, I started finding other related products and testing them. And I started posting on my own account on Reddit to the 4-ACO-DMT subreddit some reviews on these things, because I found that there are just not reviews for these. There are a couple people to where they'll be like, yeah, man, this is the good shit. It's great. It works good, but they like have no information on it. They know nothing about the product. And I can't necessarily blame them for that, but they don't know anything about the product. I wanted to know about the product. So I did these reviews, and I started to do them in a very mathematical, standardized format in which I would grade them based on a variety of factors, from flavor, availability, price range, potency, different things like that. And quickly I found that there was, while not a large audience for this, a very consistent, loyal audience for this, where people want these types of products. A lot of these people online where they'll talk about like, oh, you shouldn't be having these smoke shop brand stuff. Just get the real stuff. Yeah, well, easier said than done. If you don't know a plug, if you don't know a guy, if you don't have the spores, how are you in any reasonable way going to acquire this safely without you risking the chance of being arrested for procuring a controlled substance? It's just not going to happen. A lot of these people who want to use these products want to do them legally and safely. They don't want to go deal with some street vendor or some shady person to buy their magic mushrooms out of some dude's basement. They don't have the time. They don't have it's a problem. They don't feel comfortable doing this. And I don't blame them for not feeling comfortable doing this. And so there was an audience for this. There was an audience for people who had maybe concerns with depression or substance abuse or different things that wanted to use these substances for a lot of these purposes that you see are becoming more researched, but they don't feel comfortable procuring literal illegal substances that could catch them a felony. That wasn't something they wanted to do. That's not something I wanted to do either. It's just safer this way. So if nobody else is going to do these reviews in a competent manner, I will. I'm just some dude, but all these other people are just some dudes. Goblin's just some dude, and that's part of his appeal. He started as just some guy, and now he's regarded as relatively influential in the space. That's just how it goes. Sometimes you are just a dude, and then you aren't. So I continue making these reviews, and I'm posting them to the 4ACO DMT subreddit. And I keep getting a lot of pushback from people who are very strange about like, oh, well, this stuff is bunk. It's not real. It doesn't work. It doesn't have the real thing. And it's like, dude, it does. I literally have the lab testing. This isn't lab testing posted by the company. These are third-party individuals who personally took it in to test them. And I've spoken with these individuals. They're not bunk. Some of them are bunk, but the majority of the ones that people are asking about are not bunk. And so I decided in that moment, screw it. Why should I rely on this nonsense subreddit who has all of these weird elitists? In the psychoactive space and in psychonaut spaces generally, there is this bizarre elitism where you have these people obsessed with like, yeah, man, the mushrooms need to come from nature, man. You can't have some chemical. The mushrooms contain some chemical. It's the same stuff. They are pharmacologically basically identical. There is no obvious distinction between the two, and anyone who has had 4-ACO-DMT and has had psilocybin mushrooms will tell you as such. In fact, many will tell you that 4-ACO-DMT is preferable because it has a lot less of the negative come-up symptoms. The issue with standard shroom consumption is it'll make you very nauseous because your body isn't used to processing the chitin that's in the physical material of the mushroom. So these synthetic substances often just don't have that problem. You'll get some of the come-up issues that you should expect. Go into it expecting that, but it's just not going to be the same. And so I make my own subreddit, specifically dedicated to these wacky nonsense things in kind of a tongue-in-cheek manner. Because again, most of these are extremely fucking shady. They're really shady, many of them. And so I called it Mystery Magic Mushrooms because you don't know what the fuck these are. And so we'll have people posting and they'll be like, hey, I just got this from my friend. And it's like the most shady thing you've ever seen in your entire life. Or, hey, I was at this random smoke shop owned by some Indian dude in like downtown New York. Have you ever heard of this before? And like most of them are totally fucking wacky and suspicious. But then other ones, again, are literal $10 million brand businesses. Treehouse is not a small business. They are pretty well known in the hemp space for 2018 Farm Bill compliant hemp products. A lot of these other ones, one of the other big popular ones, Road Trip, is a subsidiary kind of branch line of another really big CBD hemp-based company. They are known in the space. They're reputable in the space. Whether you agree with that doesn't change the truth of the matter. So I continue to make these reviews. I continue to make these product reviews, and steadily the channel continues to grow. And over time, it starts to generate a lot more response than I expected. Again, this is a very, very niche subject inside of a niche subject, inside of another niche subject, right? Like these aren't just psychedelics. These are synthetic psychedelics. And they're not just synthetic psychedelics. They're legal, kind of like gray zone legality synthetic mushroom products. And I quickly discovered that while the engagement with the subreddit is pretty low, there actually is a fairly decent amount of viewership. So I get the impression a lot of people will stop by to see the reviews or whatnot, but they're not going to like it. They're not going to comment, because what often happens is like Joe Blow goes to his local dispensary and the guy there says, hey, have you seen these mushroom products? And the person's like, what? What are they? Oh, well, they're these legal mushroom products that you can buy and they'll make you trip like regular shrooms. And so Joe Blow, not knowing what he's talking about, will be like, fuck man, yeah, it's $20, I'll buy it. So they buy the product, they come home and they realize, oh, is this going to poison me? And so then they'll go online and look up, is this gonna poison me? And they'll find the 4-ACO-DMT subreddit, which is going to completely lambast them for even buying it for very dubious, nonsensical reasons. And they're gonna end up eventually at my place. And on my subreddit, again, we're not gonna judge you. You already bought the product. You're being responsible in trying to find out more details. Whether it was responsible for you to buy it in the first place is a done deal. Like, it's already happened. You're already here. You made a purchasing decision as an adult. What are we going to do now from here? So they come to us and we help them with it. We give dosing recommendations. We give guidance on how to properly do trips. I personally have done trip sitting for many people. And to my surprise, we actually have a very chill, calm community. I've had to ban 2 people temporarily out of the thousands of visitors who come by. Only ever 2. One of them was a guy who did not disclose that he was an affiliate. And I explicitly said that you can promote affiliate links. You just cannot do it without you saying you're doing it. And the second was a guy who, frankly, it came off as schizo behavior. I'm not sure how to describe it. But otherwise, the comments are overwhelmingly kind to each other. They're overwhelmingly try to help. Everybody seems to get it. These are challenging times. These are dark times. And these substances can do great benefits to everyone if done safely and responsibly. And that is why this subreddit exists. So to bring it back to the video that Goblin released, he specifically bought what is called the microdose mushroom vape by the company Treehouse. And yeah, on the package, it's pretty cryptic and it doesn't say much. It's vague. And so he tries the product, and he had a lot of things to say about it, and he was referencing testing. And so here's where we get into where things are complicated. He was talking about, oh, you have no idea what is in this. That's by intention. Not to be shady, to not get sued and arrested. See, now, while these substances, these research chemicals, are legal to buy and consume, they're illegal to sell for the explicit purpose of human consumption. If you are caught selling a product where it obviously says that it is for that purpose, you will get busted and treated as though you were selling literal magic mushrooms. That's how the Federal Analog Act works. However, there is a weird loophole that's basically the same equivalent of what you get with your THCA loophole. If you're not familiar, THCA is not regulated the same as Delta-9. So the 2018 Farm Bill says that you can't have above 0.3% Delta-9 by volume in a hemp-based product. But it makes no statements on THCA, the non-active form of THC that also must be decarbed to become active. This stuff works the same way. So if you say on the package, this is not FDA approved, because it's not, and if you say on the package vague things like entheogenic blend or mushroom blend, they'll say these cryptic things. And they're not saying the cryptic things because they're trying to actively poison you. Some of the companies, they might be actively trying to poison you. But of the big 10 or so, they're saying that because they know if they don't say that, they will get in trouble. That's how it works. So what will then happen is they'll still post their lab tests because they're used to posting these lab tests from their hemp products. And you'll go to the lab tests and you'll find that it says very little. If it's a product that claims it has Amanita in it, and often if it says it has Amanita in it, the lab testing will show that it has Amanita. Or more accurately, it will have mucimol, muscarine, and ibotenic acid extract in it. Those are the active ingredients in the Amanita mushrooms. So the mushrooms themselves are often not in the products, but the active ingredient that you get from the mushroom is in the product. So you'll check the tests, and if it has Amanita on the label, it's going to say it has mucimol in it, and it'll say how much. But if it has one of the psilocybin research chems, it's not going to say it. Very intentionally so. If it is not saying it has mucimol in it, and it says nothing else, it almost certainly has 4-ACO-DMT or one of the many other research chemicals that are along like it. Again, YouTube, don't get on me. This is for education and research purposes. Stop trying to take down my content. If it's not 4-ACO-DMT, there's a good dozen others that basically are the same, but have minor tweaks here or there. Obviously, Goblin discusses 4-ACO-DMT, and he says that the vape likely doesn't have it. And that is almost certainly true. Again, I can't go into too much detail because of liability purposes, but I have received messages from whistleblowers on the inside of a couple of these companies, and some of them have admitted to me what their recipes are. Allegedly, to my understanding, according to the information given to me by anonymous whistleblowers. Again, this is allegedly, and I cannot confirm with certainty, but I can say that it matches the description I've read. What most of these vapes have is something called 4-HO-MIPT. Again, it's another one of these prodrugs that will then convert to psilocin, but unlike with the other ones where it's not likely they can be vaped, this particular version can be vaped. If it's consumed orally, it's going to have principles basically the exact same as psilocin would, or any psilocybin prodrug, or anything along those lines. But if it's vaped, it's going to behave kind of more like DMT on its own, where it is going to start far faster, it's not going to last as long, and the come down is going to be far quicker. Where the problem comes in with these vapes is a lot of people take them and they think that they're going to get blasted on it because the description on the back of the box for dosing recommendations is just frankly bullshit on Treehouse specifically. It's just not true. There are certain techniques that you can use to produce results similar to this, but if you're just hitting it the amount of times it says on the back of the box and you're not hitting it in a very particular way, it's not going to work for you. What you need to do in order for it to work is you have to inhale as deep as physically possible. Then you must hold for at absolute minimum 5 seconds, and then you can exhale. Unlike with a lot of other inhalants, think like cannabis, nicotine, even nitrous, the active ingredient is going to hit your lungs and activate almost immediately. So you holding onto it for a very long time is not doing much for you other than inflaming your lungs. This isn't like that. This is one of those to where the way that it actually binds with your lungs requires it to be there for a certain amount of time and at a certain temperature. So you're going to have to hit it deep and hold it. And you're not just going to have to do it once or twice. You're going to have to do it a lot of times to produce reasonable effects. Are you going to get visuals on the vape alone? Very, very minor. You're going to get basic minor visual enhancement that you would on a microdose. Think less than 1 gram of psilocybe cubensis. You're basically not going to be able to get above that on these vapes alone. So why would you want these vapes then? You would want them, A, if you're looking to microdose. Again, if you hit it a few times during the day, it's going to have mood improvements. It's going to have mild visual enhancements that you would expect with microdosing. But what the real nice thing that you can do is you take it in tandem with another psychedelic. So in this case, say you took the Treehouse gummies. They've got an estimate of about 25 for ACO-DMT as of the publishing of that independent third-party lab testing. That's going to be, again, like a 3-gram shroom trip approximately on no tolerance. If you hit the vape while having a shroom trip or a similar psychedelic trip, it is going to increase the visuals and mental sensation quite a bit for between 5 and 15 minutes per hit. So if you then start hitting it a bunch, you can, for a very brief window, make a 3-gram trip feel like a 6. You're going to have to hit it a lot, though, and you're going to have to do it the exact way I described. If you do not do either of those, you're not going to get crazy effects from it. And they're not selling it like it would either, with the exception of their really stupid marketing on the back. It says microdose. That's what it says. All of these vapes behave that way. That's just how it works. Another topic that Goblin discussed that is frankly kind of disappointing, kind of one of those like don't meet your heroes kind of conversations, is he was discussing the mercury and arsenic content in the product. And he specifically lists off the number and says that it does not exceed the limit. Duh. I hate to be the bearer of bad news to you, but basically all food contains some degree of mercury and arsenic in it. There's a reason why it's tested for in basically everything. It tends to come from the soil. So any natural element that you're using is going to seep some amount of mercury and arsenic from the soil. A really good example of this is apples. Apple seeds specifically have a really large amount of arsenic compared to other things. So that's why you're told don't eat apple seeds. While a singular apple isn't going to do you much, or if you accidentally swallow one of the seeds, it's not going to be a problem. But if you're slamming many apples and eating the full core and seeds, you could have arsenic poisoning. That's just how it works. And so you might be saying, why wouldn't you just do natural magic mushrooms? Why would you deal with this? Guys, it's in the soil. That is gonna be in the mushroom too. Debatably, it's gonna be more in the mushroom. That's just how this works. It's gonna be like this in all of the hemp-based products also. You'll see the same pesticide stuff. So it's one of those, like, he works in the hemp industry, he sells products. So it was disappointing to hear him use that as a point in his favor, but not know that that's how this works. They're all gonna have some amount of arsenic and mercury. We can have a discussion as to whether or not that amount is, reasonable. It might not be. But to question whether it has any is foolish. They all have it. All foods have this to some extent. One of the biggest problems that is going to be an issue with the upcoming deregulations to the FDA due to Trump's administration pick of RFK Jr. is he wants to defund the FDA. What is going to be a main consequence of this? Expect to be mercury poisoned by all of your food. Fish in specific is known for major mercury poisoning issues. And the only reason why we care about mercury in our food is because there were regulations in place to ensure that there wasn't contamination. And even when there are regulations, there are constant situations where, stuff slips through the cracks. I hate to be the bearer of bad news to everybody, but all of these regulations, all of these foods, people will say about these mystery substances at smoke shops, oh, you don't know what's in them. You don't know what's in anything. Were you there when they made your McDonald's burger? Were you there when they packaged it at the plant? Were you there when they harvested the cow? Were you there when the cow ate specific food product? Do you know what was in that cow's specific food product? Do you know the soil that cow's food product was grown in? Do you know what other plants were grown on that soil, on that plant, in that cow, in that laboratory, in that burger? You do not. We operate under a safety net. And the issue with this industry is not that it's intrinsically unsafe, it's that there is no safety net. That's kind of the whole purpose of this forum, of my channel, to form some sort of consumer trust safety net. It was my intention, and I posted it on my page a few days ago, and it's received a fair bit of kind of accolades. A lot of people are very interested and are willing to even put their name out there to back this. I'm trying to collect signatures and surveys about the importance of forming a consumer safety net trust for these products. What that would involve obviously can be seen as time progresses. Right now, I'm broke as dirt. I may have the ideas, I may have the will. I do not have the capital to make this happen at this moment. That's just how it is. These things take time. But the plan is to form connections with these companies in this industry and to be able to get into contact with them and to see their process, to confirm their process without revealing trade secrets that could get them in trouble by the feds. And then use that information to create a whitelist of known, reputable, safe sellers and bad actors that need to be culled from the industry. And with enough pressure, and I've spoken with enough smoke shop owners to be able to confirm this, if there is pressure there, these companies that are shady will not be able to sell in anything other than weird fucking shops in extremely shady parts of town by a guy who's insisting he's got the OG good shit. At that point, just buy fentanyl. Like, you have no idea what you're getting in those situations. So not only do we need to make this safety trust, we need to make education for consumers. You need to be more responsible with what you put in your body. I understand that sometimes you can be reckless. I've been there. Goblin's been there. Many of his stories are about him putting reckless shit in his body. And it's simultaneously very educating and entertaining. And he's made a career off of that. We need to, in this industry, do a similar degree of education. That's just how it has to happen. So I don't know where this video is going to go as far as if anybody's going to care about it. I know my specific community will care about it. I can't say for sure if it will go outside of that because, again, this prejudice in the Psychonaut community is ridiculous. It's nonsense. It's not rational. You should know better. If you've taken these substances, you should know that things are more nuanced. Expect better. Do better. And if we try as a community to pressure these companies, we have an actual chance of making real change. And so this is kind of my call on to Goblin. I've sent you a couple messages on a couple different platforms. My bad. I don't mean to spam, but this was kind of the moment that I needed some sort of big attention on the subject, because it is very likely that his video on these vapes will be the single most prominent publication of any form on these topics. This is the time. So please reach out to me. I've sent you my contact information. I'd like to have a discussion on this. And again, you work in these industries. You have these kind of contacts, different contacts. You know these people. I would very much like to have some form of discussion with you on some degree of collaboration in this event. Obviously, I'm just some guy. You don't owe me anything. However, I think that if you truly care about this subject, as you claim that you do in the video, and as I believe you do, it would be of benefit to reach out. So thank you for listening to my rant. Let's hope YouTube doesn't smite me. Again, YouTube, this is for education. It's education. You please, free use, fair speech. Bye.